What is something you and your siblings did that you never told your parents about? I should go anonymous for this, but oh well. My dad and stepmom were doctors and were always at work. They also liked to go off on long weekends and leave us home alone. I was the oldest and we were 13, 12, 11, 9, and 6 months at the time. Well, one time they did this over a holiday weekend and we got bored. They had left the keys to the station wagon, so we packed everything up, and I drove us to a local state park for the day. No one stopped us or seemed to notice that we were just kids. That said, I'm about the same size now that I was then. I hit my height, 52, at 12 and hadn't grown much. I'd often borrow my stepmom's clothes to look older. I'm pretty sure I wore my own clothes on this jaunt though. I just mapped it and I drove about 14 miles through 2 towns on back roads. This was the country and it was 1996, but OMG, I never leave my keys at home now. I am terrified of what my kids will do. Our parents never found out. Oh my, Miss Frady, this is embarrassing. Mom and Dad only had an opportunity to go out to dinner once a month. For decades, Mom had prepared for us one of those packaged sauces that were to be poured over meat, along with some steamed vegetables. So, our parents left for their dinner, as we children sat down 2 hours. The vegetables were quite delicious, as always. But, the sauce over the meat and pasta was simply ghastly. Some evil tyrant, who simply despised children, cooked up the nefarious plan to include horseradish as an ingredient in the sauce. We rinsed the poison off of the meat, and ate it. But, that sauce was strong enough to gag a maggot. Juvenile taste buds and horseradish do not coexist amicably at all. There was no way we could eat the pasta, or dispose of it, without Mom discovering our ruse. I tried flushing some peas down the toilet one Christmas, and one heroic little pea refused to play submarine, and remained surface to continue the fight. Mom promptly deposited another heaping portion of those green, little bullets onto my plate. With all the wisdom, knowledge, and scheming of an 8-year-old boy, I suggested my other siblings wrap the gooey slime into a napkin, and toss them over the fence, into our neighbor's yard. They had a dog. The dog would eat it. The dog did not eat our dietary treats. Our neighbor arrived after Mom and Dad came home, presumably dining on something that did not contain horseradish, and delivered to Mom the unburied remains of our evening meal. Needless to say, Mom never served us children anything containing horseradish. Again, thank you for asking me to share this nightmarish memory. Now, I'll suffer flashbacks for the next 2 weeks. I hope you have a pleasant evening anyway. My sister and I skipped school one day in high school. It was a beautiful sunny very warm spring day and my sister's boyfriend and a friend of his all decided to go swimming at the lake. It was a long drive there in the 1960s VW Beetle. Everything that could go wrong happened. First we were stopped by the truant officer and my sister's boyfriend somehow talked his way out of that. After we arrived there was a sandy beach area and the VW started floating out in the water. It took all of us and other kids who were also skipping school to get the car back on the beach area and, of course, it was stuck. We finally dug it out and went swimming. Really playing in the shallow area. We became tired and decided to go home and the little Beetle wouldn't start. Too much water, so we waited for it to dry out. Finally it started and we went towards home. The car died in the downtown area about 4 miles from home. We walked home. I was so tired and hungry. We took no food or drinks and I never ever skipped school again. Lol, lesson learned, best wishes and God bless. Most often I and my brother loved to follow our friends to go to the stream to swim as we were growing up. In Africa most children passed through the same stage of going to the stream to swim and it was fun. In African we have many running streams and we locally use it for swimming, washing etc. Not like in US, Europe and the rest that most children are familiar with the beach. So our parents were different concerning this issue. They had earlier warned us not to go to the stream. I never loved swimming too much, so our friends will always tell us that they are about to go to the stream and they have carried along some rubbing oil. I was surprised, but they said if we go to swim after that we can apply the oil on our body to look good, that our parents will not know if we went swimming. That is how it happened. Whenever we go there we will take some rubbing oil to apply to our body, because after swimming the body will look so white, and that's how our parents can normally identify that we went swimming. Only the rubbing oil will make a difference and we will keep that to ourselves. Thanks. So I must have been, like, 5 or 6, meaning my sister was around 10 or 11. We were and still am living with just my mum. I'm almost 15 now. my sister almost 20, and one day, we got into trouble for being on our scooters indoors, and we went to our room we shared, and we were convinced that my mum had cameras in our room. Spoiler alert. She didn't, and we were swearing and flipping off the cameras in the corner of our rooms, while my sister cried and did the same. We never told her, and I thought she'd forgotten, but a few years ago, my mum asked the same question, and we looked at each other, and I knew she remembered, and we were like, oh, I don't think there is anything. When my sister was dying, her husband said to keep it happy. Like how? So I held her hand and said I found her beer bottles, empty of course, in a little opening in her upstairs bedroom that was above the garage, in the rafters I guess. When I was in college we kept our beer in the snow outside of our dorm rooms, easy reach. My mother told me when she was dating my dad he took her to a speakeasy that had bathtub gin. She never drank gin ever again. In those days it was made with grain alcohol. We killed them both and buried them in the back garden. My sister once lost my mother's husband a job by convincing her with the employer not to hire him. While our parents were out, my sister and brother and I put dishwashing liquid on the floor in our room, linoleum, and slid around bashing onto each other. It was a blast.